Welcome into the Boys Collective episode number 42 right here on 105.3 The Fan. Kevin Gray alongside Super Bowl winning scout and 1/4 of the G-Bag Nation, Bryan Broaddus, on a very, very disappointing Monday if you're a Cowboys fan after the Cowboys lost 23-17 in the wild card round to the San Francisco 49ers. Bryan, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Doing well, KG. Yeah, this thing when it's so funny. It starts off so much excitement and so fast. And it's a little bit like my passion of auto racing. You could start a race and you can run the car really, really fast, but when it hits the wall, it just stops and it ends in a thud. And then your day is done and you go back to the garage and you kind of try to figure out what happened. And we're at that mode right now where, it's the guys are getting the green trash bags and they're kind of loading their stuff up in it. And, the season's over, for the last, 20, 25 weeks, this is what you've done. And now the reality sets in that, that you weren't good enough and then you have to move on. And this team, as you and I have talked about it through these 42 episodes, will look remarkably different next year when we get together in Oxnard in July.
In a lot of different ways, personnel-wise, coach-wise, a lot of different ways this team will look different. Make sure you subscribe to us on 105.3 The Fan here on YouTube. And, of course, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 105.3. And, of course, all of our content is on 105.3thefan.com. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. The San Francisco 49ers walk into AT&T Stadium, get a 23-17 win over the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys fall inside their own building to a 49er football team that did a lot of the things that they said that they were going to do, which was run the football, be a physical football team, and really take it to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, there will be a lot, obviously, that we go through in this episode, whether it be specific play calls, what happened at the very end of the game. But let's just take a 30,000-foot view first of this game, Bryan. The way that the Cowboys approached the game in your mind was what, based on how you watched and took in the game on Sunday afternoon?
Well, I think there was initially what I saw was they give the ball to San Francisco, and then San Francisco goes on that drive, and there were like 5 straight chunk plays, those explosives they like to talk about. And I was worried. I honestly sat there, and I know there was a lot of the game left, and I was worried. I'm like, listen, defensively, they just don't have a pretty good plan right now for how to deal with this. And it was clear that Shanahan, his first 15 scripted were spot on. He made the Cowboys have to defend sideline to sideline. He made them defend down the field. It was really kind of a bad situation defensively for the Cowboys. And then the offense gets the football, and then they really don't do anything with their situation. The sacks, the minus play in the running game. I mean, there was just so much going on there, and you're kind of thinking like, wow, one team is ready to go, another team is not. And, it was going to be about the execution. It was going to be about up front. We talked about it all week that, it was going to be about the offensive line making some things happen. But I have to give the defense some credit for being able to give some stability to this thing, especially in the second half. I kind of felt like the Cowboys missed a couple of opportunities right before half to, you get the ball, drive, get points. You get the ball right back to start the second half. If you could have taken advantage of those opportunities, maybe this game has a little bit of a different tone to it. But I kind of felt like the defense did what they had to do. And, the only points they gave up in the second half is because the offense gave up an interception, and Deebo Samuel again running the football, the touchdown that he was able to make running through the Cowboys defense, that part of it was difficult. But, the pre-snap penalties, it was just kind of what it was the whole year with this team, KG. Just trying to kind of get a feel for it. The feel was that team is what it is. It'd been bad offensively for 6-7 weeks. defensively, at times they've been very good. They can create a turnover. They can also be penalized a lot, especially they could also kill big plays that their offense makes with untimely penalties. And so we shouldn't be surprised in that way. But I think that, the 49ers at the end tried to give you the game at 2:51 with 3 timeouts, and you weren't good enough to go win the game. And I think that's the thing to me. I know it's one series, but that to me is where the game really hinged. It didn't hinge on the final play of the game.
Sure.
Me personally, I kind of feel like if you're going to run a play like that where they're defending the sideline, run that play down earlier then. Find a way to run that play down earlier, and then you can maybe, then you give yourself some time to say, if you want to run it back to back, but give yourself an opportunity to save some time. Anytime you put the ball in the officials' hands, you're going to get probably worked. And, the Cowboys got worked. I mean, it was, they didn't execute it the right way and stuff like that. So again, I know I'm just going on and on and on, but that football game was for the taking yesterday. I think, again, there's some things you stabilized on defense, too many empty possessions for the offense when they had the opportunity. And that's really what this team has been, again, since roughly the Minnesota game. They've been that kind of a, when it's up against a really good opponent, there's been some struggle there.
San Francisco set the tone early on. They go 7 plays, 75 yards in 4 minutes and 6 seconds. They had 6 first downs on those 7 plays and had 4 straight plays of 10-plus yards. And that told you a lot about how the San Francisco 49ers were going to approach this game. They had no fear of this defensive line for the Dallas Cowboys. They had no fear of walking into this building, and they showed it on that first offensive possession. And then you go to the defensive side. Nick Bosa gets a sack on a stunt for a 10-yard loss. This was after a negative run play by Ezekiel Elliott that, Greenlaw was able to stop. So those first 2 possessions told me a lot about how this game was going to go. And unfortunately, the Cowboys did not respond in a way that you would think, given the sense of urgency you would think a team would need to play with in this type of situation. So obviously, as this game went on, one of the big stories of the game, and you started to touch on it, Bryan, the Cowboys had 14 penalties for 89 yards. Randy Gregory himself had 3 penalties of his own. A lot of pre-snap penalties, whether it be neutral zone infractions. Randy Gregory had a couple of those. Micah Parsons had one of those. Whether it be defensive holding calls, Randy Gregory had one of those. The illegal hands to the face that Neville Gallimore had that, was on a 3rd and 12 play.
That play was 3rd and 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the 3rd play. And you know what? It was the right call.
It was the right call.
The officials missed some Micah Parsons hands to the face too. Mm-hmm. But again, that's going to happen in games. Again, it doesn't always go both ways, but yeah, it's 3rd and 12. Neville Gallimore gets a hands to the face penalty. It happens to this team. They get turnovers, they get stops, they get defensive holding, they get pass interference, they get hands to the face, they line up off sides. It never stops. It never stops. They talk about it as, and it's almost like lip service that, oh no, we understand these officials. We talk about penalties. Do you? Because you're the most penalized team. The undisciplined factor of this team was really part of its downfall this year. The fact in this game, you needed a clean game. You couldn't get a clean game, but you haven't got a clean game all year. So I that part of it I understand because it's been that way the whole year.
So with that being said, and we've talked about this probably being the most undisciplined team in the National Football League, and that's evidenced by obviously the numbers as far as the penalties are concerned. As you mentioned, the most penalized team in the NFL. Who ultimately does that fall on? Does that fall on the players or the coach?
It falls on the head coach. And if they talk about it, it's if you continue to play players that are undisciplined. The thing about it is, and we could get into this when off-season talk happens. If you really did feel like that Terrence Steele was your best right tackle and you didn't even want to move and you didn't want to move Collins because you just didn't want to move him, If that's the thing with Connor Williams. Connor Williams win a couple of games without penalty. But what happens? Connor Williams having to face a really powerful, strong guy, couple with the 49ers are. You saw what happened. You get holding penalties. He holds. This is on the coaching staff for A, about the penalties, B, about not saying, okay, well, hey, we've tried this guy. It hasn't worked. If they really do believe in Terrence Steele playing right tackle, Lyle Collins should have been left guard. That should have been done. I just kind of, I don't know. I mean, to me, and maybe instead of going back with Connor Williams, probably wasn't the right thing to do. I thought, well, they'll be better running the ball. They were bad all year at left guard. They just were, and they never were able. They tried to fix it, but they didn't have the right fix. And I think that's where a lot of this, like I say, you make huge plays in this game and you get called for holding. This offensive line wasn't good enough this year. It wasn't. Tyron Smith wasn't good enough. Connor Williams wasn't good enough. Tyler Broaddus was bad, the first quarter of the season, got a little bit better. But, he's not, he is what he is. That's, You're looking at Tyler Broaddus right now. That's as good as Tyler Broaddus is going to get, in my opinion. Zach Martin, All-Pro, Hall of Fame guy. There are times where he hasn't been really, really good. Lyle Collins, you saw what happened to him. Bosa overpowers him, kind of gets a holding call because he's trying to recover. This offensive line was overrated by us all. It was overrated, and they never played together. It wasn't until the very end of the season that they even played together. Now, your question was about the penalties and that, but they were responsible for a lot of that. They were responsible for the holdings, and they were responsible for the illegal motions, and they were responsible for things that happened this year. They weren't good enough, and that's where a lot of this falls. The quarterback wasn't good enough yesterday. The offensive line wasn't good enough yesterday. Did you have enough separation with the routes and stuff like that? We'll see. But, overall offensively, we thought this offense was going to be a juggernaut. And for the most part, early in the season, it was. The second, it shows you that they were able to be still ranked. They had a couple of games where they got 51 points and 50 points against teams that, weren't good enough to defend you at the time. Maybe that's the thing that the Kool-Aid that we were drinking that we thought, okay. Because I honestly, with my heart, believed yesterday, I really did believe that Dak Prescott was going to play better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I really, really did. And again, I know I'm drifting all over the place here, and I'm sorry about it. But when you start talking about the head coach and penalties and the offensive line and the quarterback and all these things, it all contributed to the loss. It all contributed to the loss yesterday.
So many different things on a lot of different fronts that when you look at the way that this game played out was ultimately disappointing in how things played out for the game. When you look at, especially, and we talked about this during our preview show on Friday, the offensive line had a real job to do in this game, given the Arden Keys of the world, the Armsteads, the Bosas, who really didn't even play in the second half, unfortunately, due to the head injury that he suffered. But yet, time and time again, whether it was Connor Williams, Tyler Broaddus, at times Leo Collins, they were dominated up front. Tyron Smith played his worst game of the season. And as you look at that going forward, is it ultimately a fix of how many different parts of this offensive line has to be fixed, whether it be the left guard to center possibly? Do you even look at potentially a Tyron Smith being replaced in that situation?
Yeah, I think you really have to look at all possibilities here. But, again, where are the fixes? And maybe this team, with the way the salary cap is, they have a lot of money tied up in this offensive line. At left tackle, they have a lot of money tied up in him. They have a lot of money tied up in the right guard and the right tackle. Is it as simple as go out and draft? And the one thing that I've worked on early in this campaign, KG, is with the season, is there are several offensive tackles, and where the Cowboys are picking right there at, what are they, 24, 25, somewhere right around 24. There's probably going to be an offensive tackle on that board that they could draft. There's probably going to be a linebacker that they could use on that board. I kind of feel like, though, to me, this is going to be one of those things where you really have to take the best available player. You really have to find a way to kind of make that work. And if the best available player is an offensive tackle that you can put at guard until you're ready to move on, by all means, you need to do that. Or if there's a linebacker, they're going to have to do something. I think with Jabril Cox coming back, with Parsons, I think that's a good combination. Maybe you need to add one more. There's a couple of really good players. The kid at Georgia's outstanding. They're a linebacker. There's a kid at Utah that's a really good player. We'll get into all that when we start the draft coverage here soon. But I think that, to me, this offensive line, people could talk about the center at Iowa. He's a 296-pound guy. He's a really good athletic center. But do you want to have a center that's probably not the strongest guy? I think that it's, with Dak Prescott, it's about having guys in front of him that are good athletes. But also, I think the most important thing is the power, because he held the ball way, 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 way too long yesterday. The indecisions, it hurt them, it hurt. So, like I said, I think that your question about the offensive line, again, I'm sorry, folks, I'm just rambling around, but it's just all this stuff in my mind right now. There's going to be an offensive tackle there. There's going to be a couple of guards when you're picking, if you want to do that, when you pick there at 24.
So let's turn our attention to, obviously, the quarterback, the head coach, and the offensive coordinator in this game. When you look at how they performed, Dak Prescott obviously was not great in this game at all by any means. When you look at his numbers, going 23 of 43 for 254 yards, a touchdown, the interception that he had, which led to the Deebo Samuel touchdown, obviously, that really made things difficult as far as coming back in this game were concerned. And then you look at Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore in this game, both of them drawing a large amount of criticism as far as the way that they approached the game. There were two key moments here, obviously, in this game that's got a lot of folks talking. Let's start with the one where the Cowboys are able to get a fake punt. Bryan Anger completes the pass to C.J. Goodwin down the field. They get the first down. Okay, they're able to get things back as far as the ball is concerned and keep the drive going. Now, all of a sudden, they sit there and wait, I guess, by keeping the punt unit on the field or the special teams unit on the field to try and somehow trick or outsmart Kyle Shanahan and his defense and try to get them to call a timeout. I thought it was complete hubris on their part to think that they would fall for something like that, because it sounded like a callback and an ode to what happened to them in the Arizona game, where Cliff Kingsbury kind of tricked them into calling a timeout, and they tried to do the same in this case. What did you think about that sequence of plays? Because then what subsequently happened, you get a delay of game because you didn't get the playoff in time because your offense wasn't able to get themselves together. What did you think about that particular sequence of plays?
Yeah, I love the fake call, and I think it was well executed. I don't think there's anything that Bryan Anger hasn't done this year that has been not impressive. I think every time he's been fantastic. He's maybe your MVP of this team right now. But I think the thing about it is, I wondered a couple of different things for that. Post-game, McCarthy said he had a play ready. There's a combination that they were going to run. So they had another play ready to go. So it's going to be fake and then run another play with Bryan Anger and those guys in the game. And I wonder if it's a situation where all of a sudden you have a kicking ball, you have a regular ball, offense not on the field, kicker on the field. Was there some confusion about the ball? The kicker ball, does that need to be on if you still have the punter on? Did you lose some time there? Was there a celebration penalty where you had offensive players go onto the field that the officials saw that said, oh, they're changing personnel, So, to me, it was Dak and them were late coming onto the field. It was almost like watching Bones Fossil from my seat in the press box. It was like he was holding the offense back, like, okay, I've got another play. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, go. Mm-hmm. So to me, there was the sideline chaos of kicking ball going in, kicking ball coming out. Was it Bones holding the offense back? Did Dak and them, were they aware that, no, we have another sequence here. We have another play off this. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, offense, go, go, go. And now Dak and them are coming onto the field with I think it was 12 seconds, 13 seconds left.
It's still plenty of time to get a play off.
Yeah, officials looking like, whoa, you made an offensive substitution here. Hold. The 49ers are like, whoa, what's going on here? We're not going to burn a timeout. We're not going to burn a timeout here.
Yeah.
So to me, the problem was really twofold. It was offensive players didn't know they had a second play ready to go after the fake. And then somebody on the sideline said, send the offense. And then the offense came out, but there was 13 seconds left. And by the time Dak had gone out and everything, and he's trying to get the snap, it's a delay. And I don't blame the officials because the Cowboys were so late getting players onto the field.
Mm-hmm.
And McCarthy's telling us they had 2 plays in with that personnel package as the punting group. Well, you actually tricked yourself is what you did there. I mean, I was watching it.
Yeah.
I was watching with my own 2 eyes. I mean, I'm watching, get him on. I'm talking about Dak.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh my gosh, they're going to run another play out of this personnel group. And, lo and behold, somebody on the sideline said, no, quickly, get the offense back out there. Might have been Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore might have yelled in the headset, or Mike might have yelled in the headset, because Bones was holding the offensive guys back. He was holding like, no, we've got another play here, guys. We've got another play. Well, Dak and them didn't know that. I mean, how often did Dak and them, the offensive players, sit in the meeting and know what's going on? That's the communication, the attention to detail that you talk about right there. That's why the game, that's why the game gets away from you, because you don't have the communication. Bones wants to do what he wants to do. Great job with the fake. But he's like, no, we've got something else on this. They talk about it, but then again, they don't execute it.
It was a chaotic minute of football there when you think about
what happened. I watched it with my own eyes. I was looking at the sidelines. I knew exactly what was happening. there. Yeah.
And that gets us to the other play, or the other sequence of plays. So at the end of the game, so the Cowboys are able to get a stop. The 49ers, they get a delay of game penalty, after. First of all, credit Leighton Vander Esch, because I thought he was going to make the tackle of the year when he stopped Deebo Samuel.
It was incredible how he saved that game. Yeah, he saved the game that way. He really did. I mean, he gave him a chance. He really did. He gave him a chance.
And then, so San Francisco, a couple of plays later, delay a game, they are forced to punt. So Dak Prescott gets the ball back with, around 30 some odd seconds left. So the Cowboys get 3 plays in a row where they get at least 10 yards, a couple of completions down the field. Okay, so they're in business. Because I didn't understand why San Francisco was not playing, sideline covers, having guys out on the sidelines to prevent, these kinds of things.
They switched to it. After the ball went to the sidelines on, I think it was to Pollard, they went to sideline coverage is what they did. Yeah. Yeah.
So then that gets us to obviously what happens next. Dak Prescott decides, I'm going to take the ball. I'm going to go run it up the middle to give myself a chance to be able to get a shorter field to be able to throw, potential to the end zone. Now they run the play. He runs for about 16 yards. The mechanics and the execution after that just seemed to me to be absolutely insane, because he gets the ball, he hands it to Broaddus. Broaddus is like, oh, okay, I got to put the ball down because I know I got the umpire and needs to touch the ball. And none of that happens in the time frame that it had to happen. The referee bumps Prescott.
He grabs the ball. I mean, he literally is grabbing the ball away from Broaddus.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, obviously, time runs out. So it gets me to the question then, was that the right kind of play call given the situation that you were trying to deal with? Because I understand where people say, well, take the run, try to give yourself a shorter field to be able to clock it and throw it to a shorter distance to the end zone. Or do you get 2 plays where you throw it in the middle of the field, try to get it down and spike it, and then take your shot at the end zone? What did you think about that sequence of play and how they decided to go about it?
You know what? I didn't have a problem with the call initially, but I wish they would have done it a play earlier. You know what I'm saying? When they went to the wide coverage to protect the sidelines, run that play, and then you could get the 18 yards or so. You have more time to be able to spike the ball, and then you're in a better situation. You know, that's the problem that I had with it. I kind of felt like, to me, where they could have taken shots. I mean, when you're playing wide coverage, run the verticals. Again, this is the most penalized team in the league when it comes to pass interference. Now, do the officials call a pass interference in that situation? Hell, they called defensive holding on Randy Gregory at a key point of the game.
Sure
so
did.
You don't know. You might get a call. You might get one of their guys hooking up or grabbing CD or grabbing Wilson or grabbing Schultz or grabbing, Jarwin. You never know. But to me, when they went wide, if you're going to run that play, they should have ran it a play earlier. Get your 18 yards, spike it. Now you set up for the throw. Now you have the opportunity to kind of make everything, get the play together like you want. So I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm never going to put the game in the officials' hands that way. I'm not going to say, okay, they're going to give me a second on the clock or 2 seconds on the clock. I can't count on that. I can't count on that from the officials. I don't know. I mean, the margin of error is 0 there. And you had what happened. Official trailing play has to touch the ball. It's all kinds of like chaos there. You're better off just hustling up, or trying to throw for one time and throw again if you have to. You're better off trying that. I mean, I get it. It gets you closer to maybe making a 25-yard pass. I get it. But you needed to do that earlier where you could comfortably spike the ball and then make it work. That part of it, I didn't really, because again, you put the ball in these officials' hands, you're going to get what you deserve, and that's no time left on the clock.
So obviously that's how the game comes to an end in a disappointing fashion. And then as we get ready to close our show for today, a lot of conversation now, because there's a lot of things that have come out of this game that a lot of folks have been harping on, whether it be, the lack of targets to the receivers at times and how they went about. There's been a lot. But obviously the biggest talking point coming out of this game is the status now of Mike McCarthy. Now, McCarthy, 16-18 in a couple of seasons, with this Cowboys team. And now questions about his future going forward. Dan Quinn most likely getting a head coaching job. Kellen Moore, maybe not so much, but we'll see. But now for Mike McCarthy, how do the Cowboys, in your mind, with this long offseason, about to start, how do they approach their situation now with Mike McCarthy, given why they hired him with the talent in the roster that they had, but still, especially coming up short in a wild card game at home where you thought you had the better team going in?
Yeah, what you need to think about 2 things, KG. If you're going to fire Mike McCarthy, you're likely going to hire either Dan Quinn, because you think enough of Dan Quinn. You just go ahead and say, you know what, Dan, instead of you leaving and going to Denver, we want to make you our head coach. We want you to be our head coach here in Dallas. You're not going to fire Mike McCarthy unless you got Dan Quinn lined up or you have somebody else lined up that is going to become available. Or might, you got to think about the bigger fish. This is not fire Mike McCarthy and hire Byron Leftwich or something like that. This is if you fire, it's because you think the world of Dan Quinn and you feel like he can do the job and bring in the right coaching staff that he needs to do, or you've got a bigger fish in mind, and again, there's all kinds of rumors and speculations about who that bigger fish might be. I mean, To me, that's the only reason why you would do it. Mike McCarthy, I think, is going to come back. I do think they're going to lose Dan Quinn to the Denver Broncos. I've said that all along. I think that's his job. But, I mean, I would be real interested to see if, in fact, that Jerry and Stephen Jones, Will McClay sit down and say, you know what? Big picture here, we need Dan McCarthy. We need Dan Quinn as our head coach. Or we need another coach from the outside. I think there's other coaches from the outside that would love to have this job. But that the only way I think that McCarthy gets fired is if, again, it's Dan Quinn or one of these other bigger fish. And I think you have to move on Dan Quinn pretty quickly here if you're going to do it, because I think by Wednesday, Thursday, you might have an announcement from the Broncos that they've hired Dan Quinn as their coach.
I have to go back and correct myself. Sorry, McCarthy 18 and 15 in his 2 seasons so far.
Sure.
With the Cowboys. So that to me is going to be a lot of drama going forward here, is whether or not you decide to keep Mike McCarthy. I don't think Mike McCarthy should lose his job, but at the same time, I get why a lot of folks think, well, you might need to make a move, especially if it means keeping Dan Quinn, if you feel like that's going to be the guy going forward. I don't think that necessarily should be the move, but I can see why folks are starting to think that way when it comes to
you'd have to satisfy the Rooney rule, right. I mean, again, but but heck, I would say the only like I say, to me, it's Dan Quinn or a really big fish. And I can't tell you who the really big fish is, but I have my thoughts about who it might be. But when I get into it, I get yelled at about talking about the guy. So I'm not even going to bring it up. But the thing about it is that's the only reason you would do this, But this is going to be, as we talked about earlier, KG, this is going to be a remarkably different team next football season. And it likely will be a very different team from the coaching staff aspect, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Should be a dramatic offseason for the Dallas Cowboys one way or another. Unfortunately, it comes to an end rather abruptly in AT&T Stadium as the San Francisco 49ers win 23-17, and they move on to take on the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round, which low-key for the Packers, that's a bad matchup for them too, but I don't care. That doesn't matter right now because my team isn't playing in the tournament anymore. You can find Bryan on Twitter at Bryan Broaddus. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, be sure to subscribe to 105 Through the Fan here on YouTube. And also you can find us on 105throughthefan.com and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 1053. Bryan, thank you so much for this season. Really appreciate you joining us here on the Boys Collective. Sorry to see that it ended so abruptly the way that it did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we appreciate your coverage of this team and look forward to doing this going into next season. And obviously when the draft begins and stuff, we can go through some of that
absolutely stuff. Yeah, let's not let this thing die. We'll get back together. We'll start looking at some of these players and figure out, and you never know with the news that happens around this place, you and I might have to jump on for an emergency one before you know.
We will do so. As Super Bowl winning scout Bryan Broaddus, my name is Kevin Gray. We'll talk to you later here on the Boys Collective. Have a good day.